Go ahead. We're almost 10:05. Let's slow roll in.
Okay, love it. Well, Scott, you're the primary host, so why don't you
I
kick us off?
Yeah, I guess thank you all for joining, and hopefully we'll have other folks rolling in as we move along. Q&A seems to work, so we can chat with each other via Q&A. This is hopefully interactive. This is our Hacking Finance ninth session. Um, Kicked off way back in the beginning with myself and Matthew Paul from JPMC, and unfortunately, Matthew was not able to make it today. He sends his best, and he thinks you guys will be okay with Alex and I and Reagan running the show. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Just a little bit of background for me, and then we'll jump into Alex and Reagan. But I'm a fractional CFO with ATTIVO Partners. ATTIVO Partners is a accounting finance CFO firm that works with early stage startups from Series C to C plus, and we provide full stack accounting and finance services for our folks. I get to also, aside from being fractional CFO, get to lead the FP&A practice at Attivo and solve for financial modeling, fundraising, and FP&A support. And so this will be exciting to go through some of the problems I'm trying to solve with AI. And so, Alex, on to you.
Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen again, but my computer, I'm a Google Voice connected, um, and sometimes I get spam calls there. Scott, thanks for passing it over to me. I'm Alex. I'm the co-founder CEO of Truewind. We're an AI native startup based out of San Francisco, building AI for finance and accounting professionals. Been in business for 3.5 years. So if anyone remembers ChatGPT's history, we incorporated the same month as ChatGPT. We've seen the evolution of interesting but bad LLMs to good LLMs, from bad agents to good agents, and how our product has had to evolve over that period of time. We do miss our good friend Matt Paul. Wish him a speedy recovery. I'm sure he'll be back soon. But given, we don't have his beautiful hair here, we had to invite someone to cover for offset Scott and my baldness. So I'm my team member Reagan here. Reagan, you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for that kind intro, Alex. Reagan. I work with Alex. I'm on the solutions team, one of the CPAs here. Worked in public accounting at EY and then did in-house accounting. And now I'm here. So excited to show you guys what we got.
Sweet. Scott, you want to tee up a little bit about our session today?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Obviously we've been this is our ninth session with Hacking Finance, and started back when ChatGPT, OpenAI released the GPTs, which now I think GPTs, I don't even know if folks use them anymore because now it's become agents. So it's exciting to see the evolution. And now as always, we try to bring to you something that's practical. So first off, we want to talk about the concept of build versus buy. So how much investment do you make as an individual or as an individual company versus leveraging companies that have received tens of millions of dollars of VC funding to solve various problems in the office of the CFO tech stack. And then walk you through a couple of use cases that one is want to make sure that you get a concept of how you could build an agent after the end of this session, and also kind of show you what I'm working on financial modeling and how to automate some of the financial modeling work that we do. And then Regan will show, rather than me hacking away at Claude, he'll show how that's the build or buy. So I'm trying to build, and Truewind has a solution where you could theoretically buy. So that's what we have in store.
Beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to kick this off with a couple slides. We did promise that we're going to keep this we've always had these sessions be interactive, take Q&A along the way, and also do demos. But given the conversations we're having, agents still seem to be this murky thing. So I am going to start off with a few educational slides and frameworks. Scott is going to lead the charge on a Claude demo. Then Reagan is going to lead a charge on a purpose-built finance AI tool and how much that unlocks relative to Claude, and then jump into some Q&A. I'd like to do a quick poll. Let me see if I get this right. Poll and quizzes. Scott, are you seeing a poll show up on your
I
screen?
see a poll. And I
Okay,
will.
people are answering, and it's very, very honest. I love it. How many of you have used or built an agent? All right, how about that? I think we've had 63 answers. We have 70 plus people here, so we have a couple
Great.
more. Okay, good
Let's.
enough. Can you guys see the outcome of the poll?
I don't see it.
You can, when you end the poll, Alex, you can post the results.
Perfect. Okay. Everyone, you can kind of tell hosting podcasts is not exactly our specialty, but we're going to try our best.
We're finance people. We're just
There
trying
we
to
go.
like sort out numbers.
Great. Okay, now can you see the results?
I don't see. Oh, here we go. There we go.
That's
So a
honest.
good, yeah.
Love
What's
the
an agent?
honesty.
I love
Yep.
it. What's an agent? I think we'll ask that question a few times.
Yes. In
So it's
fact,
great.
Scott and I, we continue to jam on this topic because it's understanding it is helpful and important. And through these demos, you're going to see it's not that hard to set up your first ones, but it is hard to get the most out of them. That's going to be the hard part. By the end of today, you're going to understand, I can answer what an agent is, and go home, open up your Claude, and set up your first one. Okay, let's continue. Oh, hold on. So everyone did see the results, right? Perfect. So what is an agent actually? I'm just going to start off with a couple educational items. There's a lot of, we throw around the word workflows, we throw around the word agents, and it's sometimes hard to wrap your mind around what's one, what's the other. If anyone here has used, those old workflow automation tools like what is it called? Arterix?
Was it
Alteryx.
N is it
Alteryx.
NAN?
Alteryx is the jacket. Uh, Alteryx, yes, and Scott, the current version of it is NAN. Those flow charts that you draw, right? You draw a flow chart, this goes to this, goes to this, goes to this. That's a workflow. It's predefined, it follows a very rigid path. But Scott, as you're building out a model or revising a model, are you following the same steps every single time? Or does like something happen where you're like, oh, that didn't work. I need to do it differently. Instead of starting with headcount, I need to start with cogs or something of that sort.
I would say, at least half of the model building is workflow, but then the other half quickly becomes a lot of real-time decisions and different takes you in different directions.
And it's the real-time decisions, how it takes you in different directions. Like that, the workflow broke. That workflow that you had set doesn't work over here. So what do you do? Okay, I'm going to build a workflow for this edge case, for this edge case, for this edge case. Suddenly that becomes, it's so annoying. You might as well just do it yourself because you have a brain. I'm like, I'm just going to go handle these edge cases. The problem in finance and accounting is we live in edge cases. If everything worked exactly the way it was supposed to work, then everything could be automated. And yet this massive industry, this massive organization exists because we have to handle every edge case and we have to get everything right. That's why agents are so exciting and so cool for the world of finance and accounting. Okay, so here's an example, a very simple example of a workflow that I've used in the past. You put an input, what will the weather be the day I meet Lily Musk? And I go to a calendar app and it spits out a output. And that's it. That is a very, very rigid workflow. But an agent comes in when these rigid is when problems change and the rigid rules don't hold up. So let me use a diagram. If anyone wants to take a screenshot, this is a hopefully pretty helpful one. Can you see my mouse on my screen? Okay, so you see the mouse, how I'm drawing a box around the input, the AI agents, and the output, right? That's ChatGPT, that's Claude. I write something, and then OpenAI does something, and then it spits out an output, and that's it. Agents come into play when you give it access to tools. So this is the first demo we're going to show. We're just going to show you if we just give you access to a bunch of different tools, what is it able to do? How can it loop through a problem? Okay, so Scott, we're going to go into build versus buy before we go into demos. Anything else we need to cover over here? I think we're doing okay on time.
No, I think it's great.
Great. Looks like we have a couple more attendees joining, which is fantastic. Okay, let's talk a bit about build versus buy. And after this section, for the audience, I believe we have demos coming up. Scott, how do you think about build versus buy? And by the way, everyone, Scott and I never actually rehearsed any of this, so we're kind of doing this on the fly.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. How do I think about build versus buy? I get, it's time, it's kind of time and money, right? So how long is it going to take me to get the answer I need or get the process down? And how long, not only how long is it going to take me, but how much resources am I going to have to use to do that? Um, Versus, oh, can I go off the shelf? And is there going to be a solution that gets me, think about the 80/20 rule. Can I get 80% of what I need right out of the box? And then, the 20% is what we get paid for, right? To solve that gap. But so that's kind of where we think about it. At ATTIVO, we have a leader of tech and innovation, and so we're looking at all the platforms, all the potential partners, and we it would be exciting to build an ATTIVO product, and maybe that will happen at some point in time. But the investment, competing against folks that are getting, again, tens of millions of VC-backed money, uh, we're not going to be able to build as fast as what's happening out in the market today. So we want to partner with companies that are at the front of the innovation curve and helping solve solutions that our clients and our startup founders need.
Thank you, Scott. This is a diagram from a organization called CPA.com. They worked with several finance leaders as well as technology leaders to build a framework for how finance and accounting should think about build versus buy. If you search CPA.com, build versus buy, I think the entire 2 to 3 page document would be available. So I think hopefully, Scott, this diagram takes what you're saying into a visual component. There are certain things that is common and you should just buy them. Doesn't make sense to build it from scratch. There are certain elements that you should want to buy and then build things around it. Like you may buy Stripe or Salesforce, but then you're going to build certain pieces around it to give yourselves even more automation because you use Salesforce differently from someone else. You use Stripe differently from someone else. So that's where you buy something and you build around it. I think the core buy on the bottom left would be like your ERP. I don't really hear of people trying to rebuild an ERP from scratch. We all know we should probably buy this ERP and have a software company own the entire thing. What gets very interesting is when you get over to the right-hand side. When I think about build and own, when I think about the operating layer for a CFO, that would be your SaaS metrics. That would be ARR, NRR, the metrics that the board cares about. Because your business runs in such a unique way, that's something that makes sense to build entirely on your own. So personally, my recommendation is if you're looking to um, have your SaaS, have all the SaaS model and metrics ready, that's something that you should really think about. How do I build this? And it could be with certain tools that you purchase, but how do I build it and own that? Because that's going to be the operating rhythm of my organization. By the way, quick side note, Reagan fixed our chat function. So if anyone wants to jump in with questions or thoughts, please feel free to jump in the chat. Okay, so this is continuing off that framework, and I kind of touched on it already. When it comes to buy and build around, let's take a tech company that's Series D. You have a 3 to 5 person finance team. The CFO is Jerry Smith and currently on QuickBooks, maybe considering a move over to NetSuite. Let's say that you would buy Bill.com to handle AP. The payment processing works for the same for every company, but I need to route approvals to different people. I need to have make sure our spend rules are configured within it, and maybe Build.com doesn't allow that configuration. Those are things you can start building around Build.com. You don't want to build the payments architecture, the payments portal. You don't want to build the entire document management component, but oh, Build.com doesn't meet my needs in terms of approvals or spend rules. I can build things like that and have it work aligned with Build.com. I don't know why I was going backwards there. I talked about build and own being the ARR. So continuing with the same company, Techo Series D, Jerry Smith, now is preparing for a Series E financing, and we need board-ready metrics. So this is where you're looking at ARR, burn multiple, rule of 40. I think it would be really exciting to see if there are companies that come to the market that is able to that is able to solve this problem in a very scalable way. I don't know. Actually, Scott, have you seen anything like this that could handle all of this out of the box?
There's, there's reporting tools where you have to feed the data, but the data, you still have to go through that data sanitization process and say, okay, what is the data that I want to fit into the metrics? So even if I have a reporting tool that makes it look pretty and all these great dashboards and it's collaborative and maybe I'm not building that piece of it, getting the data to the point where, hey, it's not garbage in, garbage out. That there's something there still that needs to be addressed. And I don't think there's a company that does that very well yet. I think, it's still brute force to work through a bunch of garbage and try to make sense of it. Case in point, if you're obviously most of these folks here, I assume, are finance on the call. How many times have you gotten into Salesforce and the sales team is telling you AR is one number and you're scratching your head saying, wait, this doesn't make any sense. How are you like calculating AR off of that? And I'm seeing that all the time. And so there's something there, I haven't solved it yet, but there's something there that I think is open to being solved, and there's probably not a buy option quite yet. So that's probably where I think that would be super interesting.
Love it. There's a question from the audience. By the way, at the end of this session, we have a couple surprises to share, including opportunities for Truewind to help build out certain agents for you. So do stay to the end for that surprise. Scott, there's a question in the Q&A. If an agent outputs are non-deterministic, so the same request may produce different results, how do we evaluate and verify the reliability of those outputs? What mechanisms are available to trace the sources, assumptions, and actions that led to a particular result? What do you
So,
think from your lens?
well, if you're going to drop information into AI and you have no concept of what the output should be, you're going to have a hard time solving that because it works, in the workflow or not the workflow, but in the agent flow and kind of the financial modeling example I'll show you in a moment. I know intuitively what I should be seeing on the output. I know I have benchmarks that, does data make sense? What is reporting? So one is you have to kind of understand what you're trying to achieve to be able to uh, confirm that AI is getting you into the right ballpark. Um, and I ran, for this demo, and I'll show you, I ran my queries and my prompts and my requests out of Claude multiple times, and every time something was a little different. At the end result actually was pretty much the same. Not too much like from a cosmetically was different, but the answer was correct in all, or the answer matched in all results. But it's interesting to see that flow. And so the only way you'll know is one, running things a couple of times, and two, you have to understand what your end result is going to be. Otherwise, you won't know fully if AI is accurate or correct.
My answer to build off of Scott's is that's one of the things about LLMs, about Claude and OpenAI that's not fit for accounting. It's fundamentally probabilistic. It's something we think a lot about at Truewind, and we built a solution for. Reagan will demo that later. Is how do we use AI to create a probabilistic solution, so build a system. But then once I have that system, how do I run it repeatedly every single month in a more deterministic way? So that actually factors into the build or buy um, conversation you should be having internally. It's like, I need something that is repeatable because each month needs to produce the same outcome. Okay, so how are we doing on time? 25 minutes in, we want to get into demos in the next few. So I'm going to fly through this, buying the commodity, buy the ERP. Scott, is there any reason to not buy an ERP? Would you ever build ERP?
I've seen companies try to do it and it's a disaster. So no, I'd never, there's, it's too complex. There's too much going on. There's different ERPs to choose from. And I think, yeah, it's not something you should be building yourself.
Yeah. Okay. And then building one off, very similar to kind of buy and build around. If you have a specific niche workflow that is manual, build it yourself, right? You're not going to find something in the market that sells something specific and niche to you. Those are the things with AI tools, the cost of development has come down. You can build it yourself in an afternoon. One example for us is we want to measure customer health, like the health of our customers, because there's a lot of things happening within our tools and emails and Slack that all points to customer health. And there's like this whole category of customer health software products out there. Um, they would come in and hook up their tool to all our systems. And we already have access to all our systems. So we just had Claude hook up to our Slack, to our Truewind platform, to our database. And one of our team members built one of those platforms in 6 hours. And so after 6 hours of not even an engineer, it was actually one of our CPAs code prompting in Claude, we built a customer health tracker because it's just very specific for us. And now that's what we use to run our customer success team. Okay, so let me go ahead and skim through some of these other items as well. Is there any interest from the audience for us to spend time on security, data, and governance? Like, are there questions here? We have a section here because it seems to come up every single hacking finance session. So
Maybe
drop.
let's come back at the end to that, and
Okay,
then let's jump into the demos. Yeah, because I
gr-
don't want to lose time there.
great.
Awesome.
Okay, so with the demo, I actually had a very simple kind of inbox the calendar demo. I'm not gonna go through the entire demo in the interest of time, but what I would like to show is for everyone who has Claude, and I hope most people do at this point. If you don't, that's okay. It's never too late to get started.
Well,
This is how to,
when you say anyone who has Claude, would this also apply to OpenAI or other
yes,
LLMs? Okay.
correct, it does. Let's see if you go over to Codex for OpenAI, this is your agent. But I'm going to use Claude for this example. If you go into settings and you go into connectors, go ahead and start connecting things to your Claude. This is how agents start coming into play. So going back to this slide over here. So if this is my Claude, I'm just connecting it to a bunch of tools. Okay, I'm connecting it to a bunch of tools. And let me give you an example. I connected my Grain, which is my meeting recorder. I connected my Gmail, Google Calendar, bunch of other items. I've been trying to connect HubSpot, but it keeps giving me issues. Half my team's been successful and I haven't. But now that these tools are all connected, let's say that, oh, I'm supposed to catch up with Scott to prepare for this hacking finance session. I forgot the homework assignments I had for last time. We have a lot of things going on. So I'm going to say check Rain and Gmail, summarize where I am with Scott Mollett for our Hacking Finance 9 session. I'm using Fable 5, maybe a little bit overkill, but let's give this a minute and see what it does. First, it's looking through grain. So that's the grain icon. Claude is going to look through grain and look at the transcripts of the conversations I've had with Scott. And Scott, we've talked a handful of times about all this. Now it's going to go through my email and it's going to pull information from our back and forth by email. By the way, for
And
the
so,
audience, oh, go ahead, Scott, please.
and so this is all this is agents, right? Agentic work.
Purely agentic. I gave it a task, I gave it a tools, and I'm just asking it to go complete that task. This is us trying to fill the airtime to give Claude some time to finish his work. So great. It went through my chat. It went through, it went through our Claude. It went through our chat and it prepared all the things that I need to know. Marketing,
Awesome.
June planning, loose ends, etc. Scott, why don't I pass it over to you to show the audience a more interesting thing that you did using Claude for FP&A?
Yeah, let me see if I can share my screen. And let's see if this works. So do you guys see my screen in half too hard? So
Yep.
real quick, before I jump into the financial modeling discussion, I do want to piggyback on that because I did, Alex, between now and or our meeting now is I did run something similar. So I have my email, my Slack, my calendar connected, and I'm working with a project for a company and trying to figure out honestly, same kind of question. Where am I at in what's being done with this process? So it's a fundraising process. There's a lot of back and forth. I wanted to summarize what is my to-dos versus what are all the documentation out there. And I noticed when I ran it, you could see I'm highlighting. I hope you guys can see my screen. There's a circle around that says ran two agents. So it's like, oh, great. It's actually telling me it's running some agents. And I did run, the most powerful version of Claude, which as you could tell, quickly I ran out of tokens and had to wait. So um, I think some of the takeaway too, Alex, is what model do you run to maximize your use of the systems? But I want to show from a financial modeling standpoint, I built earlier in the year, I posed the question to Claude is like, hey, give me a simple financial model that I can use with companies. And it's a simple SaaS model. And I ran very, very simple prompts to build it in a lot of iterations to see what Claude was going to do. And the output I got was a financial model template, which I'll show you here. And it has, again, this was many iterations, so dozens of iterations to get here, and I wanted to go step by step to see what Claude would do. But now I have a model with blank assumptions. I have a model with actuals that I can enter into. There's a place to set up a structure. So this is a complete blank model. And if I went into it without Claude, I would estimate with clients and founders that this would be in the order of 20 plus hours to work through this. But for what we're trying to do, we want to be able to create a financial model a lot quicker. And so I ran two parallel asks of Claude. One is literally this sentence. So I took that financial model template I just showed you. I have an input page where I can all those assumptions I can hand to someone and they can input the assumptions. I'm taking the actual to date financial statements, the P&L balance sheet, and an employee roster. And I say, please update the financial model with the files and uploaded files. And literally this, if you could look at the recorder here, this took 40 minutes for Claude to take these files and spit out a full populated working model. The model is already working, but now it's fully populated with assumptions and actuals to date. I did the same model, and in this version here to the right, my right, which is the simple prompt, I took out as much instructions within the model as I could. So in this template, I actually have some very detailed instructions. So in the second time, I took this entire prompt and dropped it into Claude, and I wanted to see what's going to be the difference between just giving a one sentence prompt versus a full set of instructions with a lot of information. Quick answer. I got the same model output. It's pretty amazing how that all happened. And there's no history, so I kept erasing the history out of Claude. So I made sure there's no residual memory. So I just wanted to have a clean slate every time. So I was very impressed that I could just give a one sentence query and then get a full updated model. What is interesting to note, and I just wanted to highlight a few things and some differences. And every time I ran it, and again, I ran this, I would say collectively over a handful of times. In this model, there's two key things that were interesting to note for these ones. So in this detailed prompt, I'm going to go to let's see here. 8:30. There's I knew when I gave the information to the model, there's some information that was going to be confusing for Claude purposely. I wanted to see how Claude was going to deal with information that was not that was going to be in conflict. And so let's see where I'm at here. One sec. So this was 8:50. So this is where it kind of started to ask some questions of, what's where it's getting stuck. So I'll play this for a second, get up into here, and you can see it's just cranking through, reading all the information. Now it says, okay, I got stuck on some information here. And on the simple model, it had got to the same problem where it got stuck. But what was interesting is in the simple model, and I'll play this one for a second. As it went through and said, here's all the conflicts I'm having, it gave me a very different way to resolve it in this version. And I'm not sure why this is here. So all of a sudden, there's a list of items up above, and it's hard to read because it's only a couple lines, but it gave me this three items to work through in a checkbox way versus in the other prompt, it gave me a list of items that were blocking, but I had to actually go in and type what I wanted it to do versus click on what I want it to do. I don't know why, honestly, it resolved these issues in that way, but it's something interesting to note. That again, you can run, well, these two prompts are different, so I would expect a little different pathway. But even if you ran the same prompt twice, there might be some nuances that happen when it runs. So I'm going to pause for a quick second if there's any questions so far. I don't know if you're seeing anything, Alex, in the chat or Q&A or.
Sorry, I have myself muted. Eric said, thanks. I see. No, sorry, that was a question that you had for me. Let's see if there's any other things in the Q&A. Question for Scott. You mentioned that when you provide a simple prompt along with all the input files, the system runs two agents. Are those agents ones you built yourself, or are they built into the platform?
So so this is built. This is coming from Claude. So Claude is taking my prompt. It's taking my files, and Claude is deciding what to do. So in that when I first shared my screen and I showed that query, that was those two agents. That was Claude deciding how it wanted to handle my request. And so
Perfect.
I'm playing on the right here, my right, but on the simple prompt, you can see, I'll move it forward just a little bit. You can see, oh, wow, this is very sensitive. You can see how I'm selecting, how to resolve these conflicts that Claude is seeing, and then now. On the left side, I'll go ahead and pause this one. On the other side, with the complex prompt, I have to go back in and understand what it's asking, read it, paste my answer to have it resolve. I love what happened on the simple prompt where I just click, click and be done. So I don't know how. I think if I had a prompt in the future, I would say, anytime you hit a conflict, please give me multiple choice versus me having to go type and figure out how to resolve it. Because this, even though the more detailed prompt took about a minute less or half a minute less, there was definitely more time I had to interact with Claude to resolve things versus with the simple prompt, it kind of ran a lot quicker and smoother. Um, and
Got
so
got
again, go ahead.
got one more question. Do you have much left in your demo? We're thinking about time. We want to give Reagan a good 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I can end it right here. But at the end of the day, I got two outputs. I reviewed both. Everything was almost identical. Again, some very cosmetic differences, but the financial model outputs were exactly the same. They were both a model that I'd be handing to a founder and would be using on a day-to-day basis. So I'll go ahead and I'll stop share. And I think that the interesting question, Alex, that came up is like, was this an agent or is this something that Claude decided was an agent? And Alex, you and I have been talking is like, okay, what I gave was a prompt for a process, again, going and where Claude went to the tools it had to resolve,
Mhm.
my query through an agentic process. But I do want an agent, and I want these little people in the background, and I call them little people because my visual of what's going on is these little people in the background running around, going into my email, snooping around, pulling information, talking to some other little person, putting it together, and just like giving me what I want. What is the next steps of what I just showed you? Like, how could I get quote build an agent that updates my financial model on a basic level is every time the month is closed without me having to do anything, can my financial model get updated? Can financials from my ERP just show up and I wake up in the morning and all of a sudden I got, the next version of my model with new actuals?
Right. So you have the pieces there. You want to go to sleep to wake up the next day, everything's updated on the first of the month because you closed those numbers. Well, isn't that convenient? Because that's what we're going to show next, Scott. So for the audience, that part Scott and I did rehearse, and this is we're gonna tee it over to Reagan to do a bit of a demo. Scott, while Reagan starts kicking off that demo, there is a question in the Q&A that perhaps you can answer by typing it to them. The last one in the Q&A. Do you see it?
This is like how much time?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Reagan, your floor.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Scott. So, what I'll be going through is kind of Truewind's agent, or work. We call this the work paper agent. And we're doing this through like the lens of like if you were in FP&A. And we're kind of like taking kind of what Scott did and Truewind has access, direct integrations with your accounting ERPs. So if you're Sage or using QuickBooks, it has an integration. So the actuals that you need to feed into it, there's a direct integration with it, so it can query from it. So what I'll be demoing today is that kind of that exact example. And then the company that we're using, um, it's a mid-sized tech company. We've scrambled and redacted all the information, but the trends within it is all real. So it'll be a really good fun example. Um, and so I have two agents that I created. One, this one right here is kind of what Scott was showing in Claude. So if everyone might have a different model you're using to do forecasting, to different type of valuations. Um, so this is kind of like a plug and play. But what I gave it here is I just give it context in what it's doing. You're on FP&A team, and that this will be updated at a specific cadence, and then I gave it specific files. So for this example, we're not this is not directly integrated into um, an accounting system, into QuickBooks or Sage, but we got the detail for it, so I had to like feed it in. But if this was an actual customer, they could query the information directly within the chat here. So I just told it which files it is, and I told it to kind of fill in the assumptions here and to kind of fill out the model for the forecast. And so we're using 2024 actuals to forecast for future years. And kind of like what Scott was mentioning, when Claude would fill it out, we're having our agent fill it out. And I won't go into like the details of kind of like all the tabs, but it fills out the assumptions here based off of the actuals that kind of are in the accounting system for the calendar year 2024. And so, depending on which accounting system you're using, some of this information might live in there. Like, if you have your ARR, that may or may not be in there. Customer, a number amount that maybe that lives in Salesforce or wherever. Um, but it kind of auto populates it for you, kind of like by giving it the instructions. And so I'm just going to jump to the dashboard section. So over here, everything is formulated. Everything's kind of pulling off actual, it's pulling off the assumptions. So it's giving us the forecasted revenue, ARR, cash balance for future years. And then we have future quarters over here. And so the accounting system, right, it's not going to have your budget. It's not going to have the forecasts within it. That kind of lives with the FP&A team. But for Truewind, we have this agent here. So it's kind of acting as holding kind of this FP&A model within it. So this is kind of like a saved agent for this specific platform for this company that we have right here with all the forecasts. And so, yeah, this is just like the prompts used here. I would say this took about, I think the first initial prompt's always the longest. It might have taken about 15 minutes, had to adjust it, some cosmetic type of things. But I would say, yeah, that this is kind of like the output for it. But I think the part that we want to focus on is you have the model, you have the budget, right? But I think the trickier part is kind of comparing and looking at, all right, you forecasted, you did your budget, but what's the difference? Why are there differences? And I think the time it takes to kind of get those sometimes can take a lot of time because you kind of have to double click into things. You have to dig into a lot of details. But when the agent lives in the accounting system, and then it lives in the accounting system that has all the GL detail. It knows what vendors relate to what departments. It knows that, maybe there's just a new revenue stream or that customers might have increased or headcount might have increased. All of this kind of lives in the accounting system. And it has access to kind of query that knowledge from it. So this is the second agent that we created here. And so what I gave it was kind of like the forecast model. So I told it to pull this forecast from this agent here as a kind of an attachment, and then also gave it like the financial data as well. And I told it to kind of look through um, the data that's in this accounting system and to do like an FP&A analysis to let's look at the budget versus actuals. Let's also look at like FY24 versus FY25 actuals, and then kind of do like a vendor analysis and doing kind of like all right, what is kind of causing, the differences here? And this is kind of the prompt that we gave it. So you'll see here that all of this is, formulated to pull from the sources, from the actuals, and the forecasts. And so we have a breakdown by financial statement line item of like, okay, we're getting variances between the budget and actuals here. And then it's giving us a flux explanation kind of down here. And then we have the actual fluxes, which are done here, and then a vendor analysis, which is redacted. So there's no names into it, but it's including all the different bills and invoices that have come through the different vendors. Um, and so we also told it, okay, here's your threshold. Everyone has a threshold, so that is like very easily, updatable. But I think the key part here is that we it's like, okay, yeah, it's nice that it can put this kind of together. Um, it can put in the numbers, it can put together the analysis, but we also asked it, all right, can you give us some key takeaways? What are the key metrics to kind of look at? What's actually happening kind of in the business, and what recommendations you would kind of take based off of this? So it gave us this key takeaways section. And let me move this out of the way. So it's saying here that, okay, gross margins are seeing that the actuals, that there's a variance between, I guess, the actuals and the budget by about like 7%. And so it's just telling us, okay, what is kind of story here? And it's saying like revenue increased by quite a bit, but COGS outpaced the drive in the increase in revenue. So its kind of recommendation was launch a gross margin recovery review, focus on COGS drivers, pricing, delivery costs, vendor inputs, and support burden and mix. It's maybe a more generic answer, but I think it understood kind of what the patterns are kind of going through things. And I think if you were the finance manager on this, you're kind of looking through it. It kind of puts the details to you quite quickly, and then you can kind of like focus a little bit more time on, all right, what is the actual drivers here? Here are kind of like the recommendations that the Truewind agent is giving, and then you can kind of like analyze whether like, okay, what is that a good like recommendation decision? Um, and all that type of stuff. And then we have also revenue here. It's saying that the revenue increased by 46 million compared to the actuals, or is that the budget? Let me, yeah, yeah. So that's the budget. So it increased by like 46 million from the budget. And I'm like, okay, why was the forecast, so different? Um, and so it kind of like dug into it. And I think if this was like actually the actual integration with the customer, it would be able to understand like the different like revenue streams that's coming through. It could get the actual like customer count for it, but because this is more redacted information, we didn't quite have all that detail. But the analysis it ran with kind of like limited data for it is still, quite impressive on what it was kind of able to do. So, um, yeah, so I think overall, Alex, this is kind of like the agent that Truewind has, and kind of like what it can do by combining the accounting data that you have, and some of your finance FP&A type needs and analysis.
Love it, Reagan. Thanks, man. There was one question that came in the Q&A. I'll help answer this. For folks in accounting departments that are reluctant to change, even if a process is inefficient, is a known quantity with reliable outputs, and implementing learning something new can feel overwhelming. What usually creates urgency or helps move them from aversion or even curiosity being comfortable, right? Scott Reagan, I think we hear things like this a lot. And Gregory, it's a very human question. Our view is it's going to be a partnership when you bring in a new team member and you're trying to implement that team member into the fold. Like, what's that process look like? And that's what we try to do. Actually, Reagan, who's here presenting on this, he's one of the implementation managers. He sets up the agents. He does one-on-one training sessions. He holds your team's hand through that process. Like, and until someone finds a better way, we think that's what sets up accounting teams for success. So that's our approach to your question. Uh, Scott, did you have any questions you'd like to ask Reagan? for the audience. We can take 2, 3 minutes before we wrap up.
No, I think that was great. I think that's where, as I'm thinking about what Reagan was going through Truewind, is like, how would I do that myself? And it was a lot of, oh, I need to ask this. Oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to, oh, wait, how do I connect? How do I connect the right system? How do I ask the right question? How do I get that level of detail? And so that's the difference with one. I mean, it's very interesting and exciting to figure it out yourself, but how much time do you have to do that? And do you understand all the connections you need, how to get them? Alex, you and I prepping for this, I was trying to get connected to QBO to get more detail information and do some of this on my own, and I got blocked trying to get into QBO. Like I couldn't get it connected. So that's where, the systems that have put this together thoughtfully, have connectors that work reliably. That's where you get the efficiency. Once obviously you have to understand, the UI UX and get comfortable with UI UX. And I think that's a challenge for all of us, right? We're used to seeing things a certain way and doing things a certain way, but once you kind of get through that, that's where you get over the learning curve of the buy solution. Whereas the build solution, yeah, you build it exactly the way you're thinking, but you're going to run into a ton of roadblocks. And then once you tie it all in, how do you make sure it's consistent as you mentioned earlier? Because I'm running the same prompt and I'm still getting, it's doing slightly different things each time, which I don't know why, and I don't know how to, control that if that needs to be controlled.
100%. There was a question around how this is different from using Claude for Excel. I answered it by text, but I'll also add Claude doesn't integrate well with your ERP, as Scott just said. AI is a probabilistic outcome, but you need the same outcome every time. We had that question earlier, so Truewind helps create repeatable outcomes. There's a hidden cost of ongoing maintenance of anything you build. People always forget that. They think, oh, I build it, we're done. No, no, no. There's a reason Google and Meta have all these teams just dedicated to keeping the platform maintained. We designed this in a way that's fit for accounting, the bells and whistles for it, and most importantly, Reagan and his team is the forward deploy team to make you
Yeah. And
successful.
if I could just chime in on that, I think additionally on top of it, I think it's also a data thing where if you're pulling in like accounting general ledger details, sometimes they can be millions of rows long in Excel. Um, and most computers can't handle that much. And um, and
You're going
Claude
to burn up
also
your tokens pretty
sometimes,
quick.
yeah,
You're going
you
to
might burn
spend
up quite a bit
more
of
on your
tokens.
homegrown solution than in one day than your entire annual subscription for your ERP. Just because you're going to burn too many tokens because you pulled the wrong data source and now you're just cranking through it. I think what's interesting too is, and I think, this, I wanted to show more of how you can update a model once you have it automatically versus getting to the model itself. A lot of the work I did when I built that framework, I wanted Claude to build it for me, and I gave it piece by piece instructions because I wanted to see in chunks how Claude was working through the model. I spent a lot of time in Claude Excel trying to clean up formulas. I thought Claude put in some formulas that I wasn't used to. Now maybe I have some bad habits and Claude had the right way to do it, but I personally didn't like the way they did a lot of the formulas. So I had to do a lot of reworking on formulas to make them more the way I think about them. Um, I don't know if my formula is more correct than what Claude did, but I just thought Claude's was a little convoluted and confusing for the way I think about the financial model and the way I build it. So that was a lot of the time I spent was cleaning up formulas, making sure that formulas could be copied and scaled across the model if I want to do a new sheet and do things like that. I think with the model, still what I want to build into my financial model is a BVA, have a very good BVA and think more about the metrics outputs, but I do have dashboards in there and metrics outputs as well. So it's definitely been exciting using Claude. It's definitely solved some of the challenges that I was posed by our clients and the firm. And so anyhow, it was definitely worth using, but there'll be a point where, hey, I can't maintain it as well. I need something more robust, and that's where a platform might be more appropriate.
We're at the 1 minute mark, so thank you all for staying till the end of the session. So this is the exciting part. We do run free POC. So if you're interested in seeing what we can do for your organization, please reach out to engage@trytruewind.com. This email in the third bullet point. I get those emails, so I may personally respond myself. So again, reach out to engage@trytruewind.com, and we're going to see if you're a good fit for what we've built here at Truewind. Scott, do you want to add a last plug for ATTIVO?
Yeah, as you are looking to get help in your full stack finance and accounting needs, come check us out at ATTIVO Partners. We're accountants to CFOs, and we work around whatever structure you have in place, whether a team of zero or a team of many. We can fill the gaps for helping support your companies.
Beautiful. Well, Scott, it's a pleasure. Reagan, thanks for joining. Another Hacking Finance. We're at 9 now, huh? Next one, we're getting to double digits.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to have some kind of a cake or something like that, candles.
Yes.
So anyhow, appreciate everyone showing up and spending time Thursday morning, and hopefully this was helpful. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye now.